Well, good evening, everyone. Michael, soothing here. I thought tonight I would do what you know is my occasional habit, which is to catch up on a couple of the last week's local papers. But I'm going to do a bit of ear-to-ear stuff too, because people said in comments they like tapping, crinkling, and the ice cubes. Here's some ear-to-ear ice cubes, so I can stay refreshed on this very warm summer evening. Warm being a relative term on the Oregon coast, since most of the country is sweltering in the mid-80s to low 100s, and we're about maybe 72 or 3 degrees in the middle of the day. I can't complain. It's the perfect climate here. See, you notice on my hat, I have a little thing there now, but it's not permanent. It's just a little piece of amethyst that I snuck in there. In the long run, I'm gonna put other things like shark's teeth and maybe fishing lures or something. Although this isn't really a fishing type hat. It's what they call an Australian soaker hat. If you're gonna go out, because of the heavy duty chemo that I have to take, it's not heavy duty, but it's a type of immunochemo. I have to stay out of the bright sun because one side effect is you can get a non-lethal sarcoma. So now I gotta wear my hat when I'm outside during the day, stay out of the hot, bright sun, and if I walk on the beach or go fishing, it has to be in the late afternoon or early morning. Do you like the ear-to-ear with the ice? Personally, when I've heard other ASMR, who was doing it? The Russian girl, I forget her name. I thought it was very relaxing and soothing. And so anyway, I'm going to read, see if there's anything interesting I've missed. I collect these newspapers and then I forget to read them. So let's see what we've got, if anything. Oh, here's an interesting article, since I'm really into space. Scientists almost did not detect city killer asteroid. So a big asteroid might have hit the Earth and they didn't detect it, even though they say they see them all. Let's see what this says. Alan Duffy was confused. We can all relate to that, even if our name is not Alan Duffy. On Thursday, the astronomer's phone was suddenly flooded with calls from reporters wanting to know about a large asteroid that had just whizzed past Earth, and he couldn't figure out why everyone was so alarmed. I thought everyone was getting worried about something we knew was coming, Duffy, lead scientist at the Royal Institution of Australia, told the Washington Post. If you're from Australia, can you please mention it in the comments? I just love it when I hear from subbies on other continents or countries. Anyway, I read every comment, by the way, even if I can't always respond to everyone. Forecasts already predicted a couple asteroids would be passing relatively close to Earth this week. Well, that is alarming. What's the end game on this? I promised to make this somewhat of a tapping video, so it's requested. And so we'll do a little bit of that. Anyway, asteroid. Here's the continuation. he looked up the details of the hunk of space rock named Asteroid 2019 OK. Strange name for an asteroid. If it's gonna almost hit the Earth, I would say it's Asteroid 2019 not OK. But anyway, I was stunned, he said. This was a true shock. This asteroid wasn't one that scientists had been tracking. It had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Well, this is a really long article. Let me see if I can get to the gist of the heart of it here. If I can speed read. According to data from NASA, the craggy rock was roughly 110 yards wide, the size of a football field. For you folks in Europe on the metric system, and it was on a path they thought would bring it within 45,000 miles of Earth. That is 1/5 the distance to the moon, and Duffy considers it uncomfortably close. It shook me out of my complacency, etc., etc. And it goes on and on. It's a highly elliptical orbit that goes from beyond Mars and within the orbit of Venus. It's quite a traveler. That's an asteroid that enjoys travel throughout the solar system. You know, we like to go to other countries, but this asteroid likes to visit other planets. And who can blame it? In 2013, a significantly smaller meteor, about 22 yards across, broke up over the Russian city of Chelyabinsk. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and unleashed an intense shockwave that shattered windows, collapsed roofs, and left about 1,200 people injured. There are videos on YouTube of that one, by the way. And that was just a little one, right? Imagine if a big one hit. Yeah, it would hurt too, especially if it hit you directly. Let's see. Letters to the editor. That's far too political for our taste, so we'll skip that today. What else is here? U.S., Iran. A heat wave in Europe wreaks travel havoc across the continent. All right, European subbies, tell me in comments if the heat wave directly affected you and what it was like, because I'm interested to know. Teen stormed precinct to free drunk peer. In Germany, this is news internationally. This must be a really important story. German police say some 50 teenagers tried to free one of their friends from a police precinct after he was detained at a high school graduation party following a drunken rampage. Have you ever been in a rampage? Neither have I. He was detained after a security guard at the party called authorities when the boy asked for drugs and turned aggressive. Maybe he had done some drugs already before he turned aggressive. What do you think? What else is going on? The Little Rock Zoo says Trudy, believed to be the oldest western lowland gorilla in captivity, has died at age 63. Well, that's a sad story. I don't want to hear about that. Here's a photo, obituary photo of Trudy, the gorilla. I didn't know they lived quite that long. I know that many animals live longer than we realize. I believe that desert tortoises can live to be over 100 years old or something if they don't get run over or nothing bad happens. Speaking of European heat waves, I'm thirsty for more water after I do a little ear-to-ear with the water glass first on the Tascam stereo microphone. You know, I need a little after-dinner snack. In a future video, I promise to make this a quasi-tapping video, so I'm going to do this with a juicy fruit gum pack. In a future video, I'll chew a little juicy fruit. Some of you hate gum chewing videos, and some of you love them. And so, you know, I'm gonna do another video on Pokemon Go, even though it's quite long in the tooth and an aged game now, but I get requests for that all the time. On that older video, I'm gonna do a review on vinyl records. I told you guys some of this already, so let's skip ahead. Future video, not right now. Instead, in order to raise my blood sugar, what I'm gonna do you think in the Garden of Eden an apple is really what they ate? I've never found apples so tempting and appealing. This is what I should eat now for a snack. Things like an apple, they're very healthy. And I have been having way more vegetables and fruit. And way less, you know, bad stuff. As I told you in my last video. But instead of that apple, I think I'm going to have some dark chocolate covered ginger. See? But it masquerades as a very healthy food, and I'll tell you why. The ginger is good for you in many ways. Ear-to-ear crinkling will be followed by ear-to-ear tapping. The ginger is good for you, but also chocolate has some good flavonoids and other antioxidant qualities that are quite good, especially if it's dark chocolate, not too loaded with sugar. Now somebody inevitably is going to say, why do you pronounce it sugar? But those who've been watching a while already know why, so I'm not telling. I don't know if I'm going to get to the rest of the paper or not, because this says, Joanne says my eyes are more blue since I started taking the medication. Do you think they're more blue? She insists they are, and she likes that. That it's doing something to... I hope it's clearing up some of my... I have a little vision problem on the left side. Anyway, this says... a little bit of tapping there. This says... there are no additives. Next by nature combines... Combine des véritables fruits secs avec la plaisir spéciale de real chocolat noir. Oh, oops, I'm reading the French part. I think I'm supposed to read the English part, since je ne parle pas en français, okay? I don't speak French. Up here is where I'm supposed to read. Next by nature combines real dried fruits with that special pleasure of genuine dark chocolate. Now you can indulge and feel good. And it's gluten-free and GMO-free. Now, why do they say things like that when we all know that chocolate and, you know, ginger don't have gluten in them? I don't know. See? gluten-free, GMO-free. Because heaven forbid you should have some biologically altered ginger. By the way, what is this? This shape reminds me of a lot of different things, some of which I can't mention. But it looks kind of like a teddy bear that's laying on its back, for one thing, okay? And so it looks a little sad to me, that ginger. Maybe it's like cheese puffs, you know? You see all the different things in cheese puffs. Boy, I'm so far off track on this video. I'm on tracks that are in a different state by now. If I was a train, I would be derailed. Let's see what we got in here. We got masarap. That would be yummy. I don't think you can see them down in there. It sounds kind of nice rolling back and forth. I just feel like playing with the microphone a little bit today because Tascam really makes a lot of pleasing sounds if you use it right. I find it every bit as good as to audio quality as that expensive ears, I forget the name of it, that they use. Many ASMR artists use the ears. I think the Tascam is just as good. Although, you don't... Okay, so I got one of these. And the nice thing about these is, speaking of the side effects of immunotherapy, chemo drugs, ginger helps take away a little bit of the nausea or gastrointestinal discomfort that you get from certain medications. And so, if you hate people chewing in ASMR, take heart. It's only going to last for a minute. That's very yummy. I'll drown out the chewing with newspaper noises. Marine Board warns of river dangers. Sprint merger. Humane Society. Cats. There's a kitty. That girl's playing with the kitty. What are the river dangers? The Oregon State Marine Board issued a warning Thursday about the dangers of floating and boating on Oregon rivers because of low water levels. You might think to yourself, wouldn't it be high water levels they'd be concerned about in the early spring, not low? But the problem is, when you're running back and forth in a boat on a river and the water gets low, there's lots of submerged stumps and logs and things just under the water level. And if you hit one and go flying out of the boat, as the boat stays in one place and you're flying out to a different place, that's kind of a drag, you know? So, that's what they're saying. They have educational brochures. Alright, I'm bored with that story already. The crisis lurking in Californians' taps. As many as 1,000 community water systems may be at risk of failing to deliver potable water. Compton, California. They go on and on about this. But since I don't live in Compton, California, I guess I won't worry about it for now. Why is that in an Oregon paper? Okay. More boring stuff about the business page. We'll put that aside. These are really yummy. Look, I showed you these before. Maybe I showed you the ginger too, but some other time. But this is really good for you too. However, I'm not going to eat any of it since I just had a dark chocolate ginger. This one's called Bark Thins, and it's dark chocolate with blueberry and quinoa crunch. It's actually very yummy and a relatively healthy snack. I really ought to get an advertiser to sponsor me if I'm going to give them a pitch. But it says Bark Thins. I'll do a little bit. That's not very soothing. I think I'll stick with the ice cubes instead. Little ear-to-ear ice cube, you know. Also, yes, I will do whispering videos in the future because somebody asked me, will you do any whispering? Yes, I will. When my voice gets hoarse, which it occasionally does. Where was I? I was reading the package for that snacking chocolate. But once again, I lost interest. And so we'll move right along. Oh, look. The classified ad shows a 1965 Mustang at the top. Does anybody use the newspaper classifieds anymore? My dad had a 1965 Mustang. As many of you know, I love automobiles and the auto culture. He had a cherry red, actually, technically it was called candy apple red Mustang, 1965. He paid $3,000 for it, brand new. And that car would be worth multiples of that now if it was in great condition. But I loved riding around in that car with him. He even let me drive it when I wasn't yet of driving age. But it was in a big, giant parking lot at the Santa Anita racetrack in Southern California, where there is space for hundreds of cars, or thousands maybe, and there was no event going on that day. Great mistakes. This is all about barbecuing properly, because you don't want to make a mistake on your barbecue. Avoid these common don'ts when grilling. Oh, this is good I'm reading this because I can learn something about barbecuing. Usually my stuff turns out good, but you can always use more pointers. All right. Never oil the grill. Many people oil the cooking grates. Big blunder, it says. Follow my mantra. Oil the food, not the grate. If you brush oil on a hot cooking grate, you run the risk of a big flare-up. The oil that you have brushed on will instantly burn, leaving a sticky residue that will glue your food to the grate, making it stick, break apart, and dry out like dehydrating food. Oh, I hate it when that happens, so that's good. Nobody likes sticky residue. All right. Don't put food on a cold grill. Yeah, I knew this one. Wait till it's hot. Always preheat a gas grill. I don't want to cook on gas. It's a carcinogen. So I'll stick with charcoal briquettes and lighter fluid, which are also carcinogenic. Okay, so, but I just feel better about it. Don't put food on a cold grill. Clean that dirty grill. An outdoor grill is like a cast iron skillet. It gets better and better the more you use it, but you need to clean it every time you use it. Yeah, you're supposed to use one of those steel wire brushes on the grill. A bit more ear to ear. With the newspaper crinkling. Art and authors. It's your last chance to swing by the fair. Which fair? The Lane County Fair. I missed it. Oh well. All fairs are the same every year, so maybe next year. Oh, look here. Put a little steam behind your salmon. Poach it. They actually have a color photo, sort of poached salmon, and I think they're telling us that this is a good way to make it. Let's see. I'm supposed to eat salmon once or twice a week, or other sort of oil fatty omega-3 fish. And we've been doing pretty good with that. Joanne made some very yummy salmon a couple days ago. Was not poached, but it was very yummy. Let's see. Rich, heart healthy, great way to ensure moist, tender salmon is to poach it. And they don't mean like when you're violating fish and game laws by poaching. They mean steam cooking. Poach the salmon in just enough liquid to come half an inch up the sides. We didn't need much to boost the flavor of the liquid. I like it kind of spicy. I don't know what she put on the salmon, but next time she makes it, I'll do a mukbang and show you. Let's see here. Was there any Dear Abby in this paper? Oh yeah, here's one. Right here. Dear Abby. Just as I said that, I found it. Dear Abby. Right there. Before reading Dear Abby, one has to have a sip of some kind of liquid. Preferably an adult beverage, but I can't do that right now. I have to wait until my blood platelet count goes up some from my miracle medicine I'm taking, which seems to be working well, by the way. And I appreciate those who have asked. The answer is I'm doing quite well. I'm on the mend, I think. Or at least turned the corner. The thing that was getting to me was in a downward curve like this, all my blood counts, exponentially plunging off a cliff. And since I started on this medication to kill the cancer cells, it has stabilized, reversed, and come up a little bit in just 2 weeks. So the hope is, within about 2, 3, 4 months, I'll be up here somewhere close to normal, or at least better than it is right now. Anyway, forget all that. Feeling better. Dear Abby, a woman doesn't think her friend can support herself. Dear Abby, I've been friends with Mary since we were 13. We are 23 now. We tell each other everything and are as close as sisters. We went to high school together, but I graduated and Mary dropped out in senior year with the intention of finishing up later. Bad idea. She never did. She wants to get a GED, but her lack of a degree hasn't been a big issue because she got married and had a kid. Jumped the gun a bit, and her husband works. This girl sounds a little jealous. Lately, Mary has confided that their marriage is troubled. There's a real possibility that she will soon be on her own with a kid, no job experience, no high school diploma, and nowhere to go. Aside from raising her kid, she has no hobbies or projects, nothing to look forward to, and nothing to put her energy into. I want to know why she chose a best friend who has no hobbies, no thoughts, no ideas, no ambitions, and nothing going for her whatsoever, according to her own descriptions of her. Doesn't that mean this other friend is looking for someone to just sit there and listen to whatever stuff she wants to say? That would be my suspicion. But anyway, it's literally her life is just wake up, watch the kid, clean, cook, sleep. Okay. Fascinating that you chose her as your best friend, isn't it? I think she just wants a Stepford friend who will just listen to whatever she's blabbing in her ear. I don't want to get into her personal business, which is why she's writing to Dear Abby for the whole world to see. But I also don't want to see her thrown into a terrible situation. Any advice? Abby says, Dear closest sisters, that's how she signed. It's time to have a frank talk with your friend. She didn't say her husband's name was Frank, though, so I don't know. A frank talk with your friend about the trouble in her marriage, and that you are concerned she may be depressed. She didn't say anything like that, though. While you're at it, tell her how important it is that she get that GED. If she does, she may gain the confidence to improve other aspects of her life. Then keep your fingers crossed that Mary will listen and heed your advice. No, Abby, I think you're losing it. Let's read the next one, even though it looks boring. When we are young, dear Abby, when we are young, nothing prepares us for watching our parents grow old. I can see what's coming already. How do I put my parents in an old folks' home, right? Sometimes we must make the difficult decision about putting mom and dad in an assisted living facility. That's just a polite way of saying sticking him in one of those wretched old folks' homes that smell bad, all right? Making it even more difficult, there may have been promises made about never putting someone in assisted living. The translation of that is, I did make promises and now I intend to break them, but I want your approval, dear Abby, so I can blame you. Okay. Abby, please remind your readers not to make promises they can't keep. Actually, you can keep the promise. You just don't want to, okay? Let's be honest here, right? As long as we're talking to someone who doesn't know anything anyway. Sometimes kids must make decisions based on what's best for our parents to ensure they are cared for when they can no longer care. No, translation. Sometimes kids must make decisions based on what's best for the kids who don't want to deal with the parents. And yeah, that's what she's saying. Did you hear barking? I think the dog disagrees with Abby's, or disagrees with this dishonest letter to Abby. To that I say, ice cubes are very refreshing on a hot evening. She rambles on, talking more nonsense, and then Abby says, I think what most seniors fear about being put into assisted living, and by the way, if I ever become a senior who needs assisted living, can someone please give me a hot dose? All right, so I don't have to go there. Anyway, is that once they are there, they will be forgotten or ignored by their families. Well, the reason they fear that is because 99% of the time that's kind of what happens. While making this kind of decision is difficult, I agree that it is sometimes necessary. Yeah, whatever. Okay, I'm done with Abby and the writer. And so I'll put this away. Do I have any other newspaper that I need to catch up on? The home section. Yeah, I don't want to look at this. I might get jealous. That's a nice front yard. Or is that a condo complex? Oh, it's a Lakeshore Estates. It's called. It's a stunning home. It's just a home. But they're all next to each other, with no room to spare. I don't like that. If you got enough money to buy that, but the homes are right next to each other, with this much space between each one, why not take that same money and buy a home in the country instead? That's what I don't get. All right. I got another paper here, because I had two of them I didn't read yet. Is there anything interesting here? Nope. Not at all. There's a letter to the editor about homeless. I'm not going to voice my opinion on the huge homeless crisis being faced even in places like the Oregon coast, but I will say this, because I have compassion for the homeless. I wouldn't want to be living that way myself. I've given to the food bank and other things, but the thing that disturbs me is we used to have other ways of dealing with this kind of crisis. But in the last 10 years or so, we've allowed people to live like the most debased, filthy kind of lifestyle all over the streets of once beautiful, proud cities like Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Southern California cities by the beach. And I wonder if it ever occurs to the environmentalists, for example, that the reason all the beaches are now filled with coliform and fish are dying and so forth and so on is that, as Dr. Drew said on TV recently, in LA County, for example, you have sorry if this isn't very soothing, but just bear with me for a moment while I speak my mind. You have the open defecation and urination of several tens of thousands of people going right onto sidewalks and streets, being washed into storm drains, going down the LA River and into the ocean, and then coming across all the beaches. Why do we never hear a peep? We hear about, it's the end of the world if you use a plastic straw, but not a peep about this particular huge health crisis for both environment, for animals, for fish, and for people, since there's the bubonic, also known as the Black Plague, springing up in places like LA due to a huge explosion in the rat population in these areas that are being allowed to be turned into open garbage dumps on the streets of the city. Personally, I think there's no excuse for it, for city governments to allow it. They have lots of funding to help homeless people, and whatever they're doing is being wasted. Places like San Francisco, they spend $60,000 or $70,000 per homeless person per year on programs. Virtually not a single cent of worth seems to be helping anyone or doing anything other than making the problem a lot worse. But that's my only rant for today, because you know I want to be relaxed and relaxing. No more politics for me. A music mosaic. With summer in high heat, what's bubbling around town? Cold static. I'm not keeping up with the music groups because I never heard of cold static. So I must be really missing out. I'm still locked back in the music of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and no longer in touch, because pop music, pop songs, do not appeal to me at all, since they are all just one song with slight variations. You know, about 90% of it's written by an algorithm, by the way. Don't know if you knew that. Ah, I found an interesting article finally. Man rescued after 4 days in the high desert. Man rescued after 4 days. In the high desert, I presume the high desert of Oregon. Let's see what it says. Portland, but I don't think that's the high desert. I think that's where the reporting is being done from. Portland. A 71-year-old man was stranded in the remote Oregon high desert for 4 days with his 2 dogs, and was rescued when a long-distance mountain biker discovered him near death on a dirt road, authorities said Thursday. Gregory Randolph had hiked about 14 miles with one of his dogs after his Jeep got stuck in a narrow, dry creek bed. Okay, they did that in reverse. They should have said, after his Jeep got stuck in a narrow, dry creek bed, Gregory Randolph had tried to hike out over a distance of about 14 miles. Writers are terrible today. He was barely conscious when biker Thomas Quinones found him on July 18th. Quinones of Portland hadn't seen anyone all day as he biked across the so-called Oregon outback, a sparsely populated expanse of scrub brush and cattlelands in south central Oregon. At first he thought the strange lump was a dead cow. And it goes on to say what? Randolph was very sunburned, couldn't talk or sit up, and could barely drink the water Quinones offered him. Quinones hadn't had a cell phone signal for 2 days, so he pressed the SOS button on a GPS tracking device he travels with in case of emergency. That's very fortunate that he did that. He sat with Randolph, unfurling his tent to provide shade as they waited. That's where the tent came from. He had a tent with him. And then a dog, a tiny Shih Tzu, emerged from the brush, and Quinones fed it peanut butter. On a lighter note, have you ever fed peanut butter to a dog? It's awfully fun to watch them eat it. A little bit mean, but fun. You know, watching them like for hours trying to get every bit of the taste. An ambulance showed up more than an hour later and whisked Randolph away, leaving the dog. Hey, that's not nice. They should have taken the dog for, you know, comfort support for the guy. So, what do they call that? Comfort dog? You know, a sheriff's department showed up minutes later, and Kinoas continued on his trip. The deputy took the dog. You know, before they said he had 2 dogs. Now it's just 1 dog. This is not very good reporting. Oh, wait. Okay, my error this time. His second dog had also stayed at the site and was also alive. They found his Jeep 2 days later. The dog had gotten some water from mud puddles in the creek bed and stayed alive. Alright, so let's see. Randolph spent nights in the hospital, but is now home and recovering, as are his dogs. I think Randolph, at age 71, might want to consider avoiding going into remote places that are hundreds of miles from everywhere, at least unless he's got a satellite phone or something to take with him, right? That's the good thing about a satellite phone, is that you can call from anywhere. You don't need a cell signal. I worked on the program that built the global star constellation of satellite phones. Worked on that for many years at my old company, and quite proud of that constellation. Although it couldn't make any money because the cell phone build-out happened a lot faster than they thought. When we put those up in space in the 1990s, they thought they'd have more of a market for satellites. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But for you flat earthers, satellite phones could not work unless the Earth is round and the satellites are all flying around it. In the case of Global Star, there's 48 of them, probably more by now, all whizzing around the Earth, so that a couple of it's a low Earth orbit constellation, all whizzing around so that a couple of them are always in view up there. If you could light them up, you'd see them. The system would never work unless you were on a globe Earth. But that's true for many forms of satellite communication and broadband, etc. Backers of Hawaii Telescope 2 benefits. Have you ever been up to Mauna Kea, Hawaii's tallest mountain, and seen the telescopes up there? It's really an interesting sight because you think you're on the surface of Mars or something. It looks so different up there. And they want to put another one. There's several there on the peak. They put them up there because it's so high in elevation. They get above the clouds and above the the thicker air. So with the thin air, they can really see space well. And it looks like they want to put a new one. A giant telescope that will enhance humanity's knowledge of the universe and bring quality, high-paying jobs. And there's protesters. Of course, there's always protesters for any human endeavor. An international consortium plans to build the 30-meter telescope at the top of Mauna Kea, which some native Hawaiians believe is sacred. The Hawaii Supreme Court ruled the project had a valid permit. Well, there's already a bunch of telescopes there. But this one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, will be so powerful that it will be even better than the Hubble Space Telescope. Let's see here. Supporters are impassioned about why they believe the telescope belongs on Mauna Kea. which has the best conditions for viewing the night sky in the entire northern hemisphere. See, they're far, far away from the light pollution of the continent, for example, and the air pollution of the continents. And so that's important. Does it say somewhere Hawaii would lose? People need to think really hard about why you would pass this up. Opponents of the telescope, mythical, Pele, whatever. They say if you take any volcanic rock from Hawaii or any objects like shells and bring them back to the mainland, there will be a curse on you, and that some people, having endured the curse, got so upset they took the objects back to Hawaii and dropped them off. I don't know if that's an urban myth or if people have really done that, but that's the story. All right, I hope that you are relaxed by this tapping and ice video. It wasn't fully a tapping video, of course. That would be 100% just tapping. And we didn't do that, did we? I will do one of those sometime. Maybe find a few different objects. Oh, look. I've got light salt. It's half potassium chloride, which is good to prevent leg cramps and has other good properties. So and it also has less sodium, of course. So if you like to keep your sodium low, it's a good product, but it costs quite a bit more than salt, Anyway, this video is almost an hour long, and I didn't mean for it to be. Here's the supplement we're taking now for eyesight and stuff. Blueberry, made with whole fruit. It has resveratrol, or however you pronounce it, and all kinds of other great stuff, and will help with heart health, cognition, anti-cancer properties, and eyesight and other things. We just started on it, so I'll let you know later if it helps with anything. Not that I would. I'm a firm believer in ignoring all the claims of supplement makers and digging into whatever genuine scientific, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies have been done and trials that are well designed, then making decisions. But blueberries definitely have great properties for human health of various kinds. I have done that research, so I'm looking into some other things, but a lot of stuff has false claims, as we found out with vitamin C and things like that, as meta-studies were done to check the claims of Linus Pauling. An apple a day may or may not keep the doc away. It looks nice though, doesn't it? It's almost too pretty to eat. All right, everybody, take care. Don't ASMR and drive, and until next time, I hope you sleep well. If I can be of any soothing assistance to anyone, then my day has been made complete. All right? Love all my subbies, and appreciate all the comments. You've been so supportive of me. I really, really appreciate it, by the way. I'm not just saying it. I actually mean it. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.